polar opposites. The first, charged with killing 3 women, he confessed to over 36 murders and even still is suspected of taking the lives of over 100 women in the United States. He's one of America's most hated men to ever walk this planet. His name? Ted Bundy. Let's look at someone on the other side of the extreme. He preached to over 215 million Americans across many rallies and other events. He opened his own library, founded many outreach programs, started many crusades just to spread the news of the gospel of Jesus Christ to our nation. And undoubtedly that nation was mourning when on February 21st, 2018, Reverend Billy Graham went home to be with the Lord. As I look at these 2 men on different levels of this psychological spectrum, I find myself somewhere in the middle asking questions that I believe many of us are asking each and every day. Questions like, why am I the way that I am? And if there's something that I don't like about myself, what can I do to change? I've done much research in my quest to find these answers, and I actually found that these questions are at the core of a lot of psychological minds. You see, some believe that it's biology and genetics that help determine who we are. Others believe that it's environment and culture that shape and mold us to who we become. It's a clash between genetic factors and environmental influence, or to put it in simpler terms, nature versus nurture. My purpose today is to help you, as I've done for myself, find the answer to these questions. Why are we the way that we are? And if there's something that we don't like about ourselves, what can we do to change? In doing so, we'll first look at what these nature-favoring psychologists believe. Then we'll turn around and look at this environmentalist point of view, and we'll end the day by answering these questions. So what exactly do these biologists believe? According to verywellminded.com, they believe that all genes and other hereditary factors work together to form who you are, ranging from the way you look to the way you think. They believe that an evolutionary process takes place to help determine our personality. They believe that our personality and our thought processes are basically handed down to us from our parents. In short, these psychologists believe that human beings can sharpen their personality but can never change it altogether. Let's turn around and look at what these nurture-favoring psychologists believe. According to UKessays.com, they believe that who we are, what we think, how our personality turns out is determined by things such as the environment that we live in and the culture that we grow up in. They believe that our minds are at a blank state at birth, and things such as social culture and peer influence shape and mold us to who we become. They believe that all behavior can be described in terms of experience alone. In short, these psychologists believe that the way an individual is brought up determines who he becomes. So with this foreknowledge in our mind, we're back to these original questions. Why are we the way that we are? To answer this, I looked back at Ted Bundy to try to figure out what went through this guy's mind and what made him think the way that he thought. I looked at an interview of him and I noticed that he had a calm and a mild personality. He seemed to pay close attention to every word the interviewer had to say, and he seemed to genuinely care about what the interviewer had to offer. Ted Bundy gave intelligent answers, and he genuinely seemed smart, and I noticed that based off of this, personality-wise, Ted Bundy and I were a lot alike. Then I switched it up and tried to analyze this environment that Billy Graham grew up in. According to BillyGraham.org, he grew up in a time where working hard was a priority. He was exposed to many Christian values at a young age, and family was of the center of importance. And I noticed that based off of this, Billy Graham and I grew up in almost identical environments. Through my realization, something amazing began to happen. No, believe it or not, I don't spend my free time killing people like Ted Bundy. But at the same time, I haven't preached to millions of Americans, and yet I compare to these guys in so many ways. I began to discover that it's not actually nature versus nurture, but rather nature working together with nurture to give us our identities. In other words, nature determines how you think, and nurture determines what you think, thus giving us the reason as to why we are the way that we are. But one question still remains. If there's something that we don't like about ourselves, what can we do to change? Although many of us would want to, we can't change the parents we were given. Oftentimes we can't change the environment that we grew up in. So to change, we must change the one thing that we can control, and that is how you respond to both genetics and environment. When adversity hits and it seems like everything's crashing down, or when you're on top of the world, it seems like everything's going right, one thing remains constant, and that's you. I suggest to you today to become the change that you want to be. You see, my purpose today was not only to show you how nature and nurture work together to give us our identities, but for you to use that information to become the version of yourself that you want to be. We first looked at genetics and biology and remembered that we can't change our parents. We turned around and looked at environment and culture and remembered that oftentimes we can't change that either, but we can control how we respond to these things. I've chosen to take this information as to why I am the way that I am and become the best version of myself that I can possibly be. And now the choice is yours. There's things in our life that we can't control, but we can control how we respond to these things. So I leave you with one final question. How will you respond?